War is no longer guided only by soldiers and commanders. It is increasingly shaped by software that decides what the battlefield is. But when AI defines reality, who defines the moral line? This is the story of ontology, deontology, and why Kant still matters in the age of AI warfare.
War leaves behind shattered concrete and smoke, but the software used to direct it looks sterile, organized, and clean. Modern militaries pull in more data than human analysts can physically watch. Thousands of hours of drone feeds, satellite imagery, and sensor logs pour into command centers every single day. To handle that massive volume, the U.S. Department of Defense launched Project MAVEN. The initial goal was to use machine learning to sift through all that footage automatically. MAVEN evolved into a tool for integration. It began connecting those isolated data points, a sensor blip here, a drone feed there, into a single, unified operational picture. To understand how an AI builds that picture, you have to look at how it defines the world. In computer science, this is called an ontology, a system for organizing what exists. Without it, a machine looks at a battlefield and sees nothing but meaningless pixels. This diagram shows how an ontology engine structures raw data. It draws bounding boxes to classify chaotic pixels into objects, like a vehicle or hospital. The system then links these objects, connecting a truck to a road and identifying buildings relevant to a mission. This digital architecture serves as the foundation for every military action that follows. When a machine defines the world, its internal rules determine what is visible and what simply doesn't exist to the system. This chart maps out the target funnel, a chronological process where AI strips away the messy context of human life to produce an operational decision. At the top, the AI applies classification and identity filters. It might determine a cluster of pixels as a cell phone and then mathematically associate that specific phone with a specific person. Further down the funnel, the algorithm interprets the movement of that phone as suspicion. If the pattern matches previous hostile activity, the system generates a probabilistic target recommendation. This table outlines the reported AI targeting ecosystem used in the Israel-Gaza conflict, showing how specific systems execute these ontological functions. Programs like Gospel generate recommendations on physical structures, while a system called Lavender identifies individuals. These tools classify suspected combatants at a massive scale, and location tracking systems flag when those individuals return to their family homes. The automated pipeline ending in a strike does not start with a commander's moral judgment. It starts with the cold, statistical classification of data points. This 4-part graphic details how flawed ontological parameters can distort reality. If a system is tuned to be too aggressive, algorithmic uncertainty is automatically converted into a categorized threat. When the AI's recommendation is implicitly trusted by human operators, that machine-generated target score becomes the unquestioned default reality. The digital map dictates the physical reality of the war zone. By setting the thresholds for suspicion and targeting, the algorithm's internal rules directly determine the human cost. When pressed on the ethics of these systems, governments and tech companies rely on a familiar defense. They insist there is always a human in the loop making the final call. This diagram illustrates why that defense fails in practice. On the left, an operator sits at the center of a massive flow of information. When an AI outputs thousands of target recommendations, the human is entirely overwhelmed by the volume. Operating at the speed of the machine, the human is compressed into a rapid-fire validator. They react to machine-generated suspicion instead of investigating the evidence themselves. Having a person physically click approve on a pre-packaged target list might satisfy a technical requirement, but it does not constitute meaningful human control. This chart contrasts the root of ontology with a different philosophical framework, deontology. Derived from the Greek word for duty, deontology asks what lines we must absolutely never cross. The philosopher Immanuel Kant defined the core rule: human beings must be treated as ends in themselves. They can never be reduced merely to tools, instruments, or variables inside a machine's mathematical calculation. This graph plots the friction of moral certainty against the speed of action. It highlights that statistical optimization does not equal morality. An 87% probability score is a mathematical correlation, not moral certainty for a lethal strike. Maintaining ethical balance requires introducing what we call the Kantian drag. This is a deliberate philosophical friction designed to prevent automated speed from replacing human judgment. Ontology is necessary to manage the staggering scale of modern war, but deontology has to serve as the absolute boundary. We can let machines organize the data of the battlefield, but humans must retain the sole authority to value a life.